All right, welcome everyone. To the Historic Area Commission meeting. It is Thursday, December 12th, 2024. Happy holidays and thank you everyone for being here. I'd like to start by forum and Commissioner can state the names.
Michael Westman.
Sarah Hayward Olivas.
Kevin Wade.
Lisa Doak. Rayla Hammer, architect. Have a quorum. There's one proposed change I would like to make to the agenda, and that's under new business, the discussion of signage in the Historic Commerce District. If I propose to move that to next month's agenda. Truthfully, I'm not prepared to have that conversation today, and I think with the number of items that we need to get through, it wouldn't be the best use of our time. I think because it's on the agenda, we need to make a motion to move it.
Make a motion to move that discussion till January.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Now let's start with older tabled applications. We have 252 East Second Street, Mark Fitz, I believe. Replacement of a patio door in the back of the home. Is anyone here representing this application?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Eric. I'm from Renewal by Anderson.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
So I actually brought in a sample of the door that will be installing for the house. So the whole entire door is constructed with wood, and just on the exterior, it's called a Flexicon finish. So it is there to mimic the finished paint of the wood look. So here's the piece of the, if you like to see it. Yeah.
Sounds like it's an applied finish, it's like a thick.
Yeah, it's like a finish. Cladding wood and
And what's the exterior material exactly, that canvas, what is it exactly in terms of?
the canvas is just the color of the board.
Okay, what's the material itself, I'm sorry.
Yes.
But it appears to have a certain thickness, so what is it exactly?
The thickness of the
Yeah, what's applied on the exterior?
so the exterior part of it's a Flexicon, it's a paint ionic bond between the material and then the paint itself.
That's a paint.
That is, yes,
That
it's like
surface is a paint.
the paint
And what's right under
that
the paint?
goes,
What's that little black?
that piece
Underline.
is a thermal shield
Okay,
to protect the material, the wood material from the elements.
and is the exterior paintable? I'm just asking in general,
No, it
Information, it's not,
it is not, no, because that is a pre-finish, that's
that's a factory pre-finish.
a factory pre-finish.
Okay.
That's just regular. So if something were to happen then to this finish, then you couldn't like sand it and repaint it.
No, that we'll have someone else to come, someone from our company will come out and take care of the finish. Yeah.
This appears to be a layer of a material on the exterior.
That's why I think the black is that
That is the thermal shield.
the
that
thermal
was
shield, so
shown
there's like a
about.
fabric below it, so
Below, underneath it, yeah.
it's not like a metal cladding, but it's sort of
No.
like a fabric cladding that's supporting the paint coat above it. But it's a shop applies sort of like. long lasting, it's not paintable or stuff.
I'm neutral on that.
I mean, the reason we're here, you know, it's in the back, it's not, but these are the kind of materials, as we see new materials coming for buildings, is sort of understanding what we're getting, so that's very helpful.
Yeah.
To see what it is.
And this material is required by the ocean, like the Ocean City, New Jersey, those towns, just because their material in terms of durability is just much greater, so.
And that's applied just on the exterior.
Yeah, on the exterior, the interior is all wood, and we have selected mahogany for the interior. And the whole entire frame of the door is going to be wood as well.
Okay, so the only component that's gonna be is the door itself. So again, there's within the guidelines, there's always room for using specific alternate materials. But this is a, you know, a plaid in a sense, door in a certain ways. Less aluminum clad, so it's kind of like, and as things go, we probably talk about revisiting the guidelines for new materials here. And, you know, it's less critical whether it's a non-contributing versus a contributing building.
Are there any thoughts from the commissioners on this?
To me, it appears to be a laminate, and I don't see it as being wood. That's my interpretation.
I mean, and the second component, so there are two, one, the material, the second that we do allow for replacing alternate materials on non-contributing building if it's not visible from the public right of way. So then it's like, what do you think the material is, and is it accessible because it's a non-contributing building and it's not visible from the public right of way? So those are the answers.
So the notes say it's a fiberglass clad wood, but that's not what this is. It's just what we're seeing right there.
It's a mesh, you know, and that's where like fiber, it's like, it has a fiber mesh under the paint. So in a sense, the wood is
Okay.
clad with a fiber mesh, it's not fiberglass, that's why folks should see a sample and get a better sense of what exactly the material is. So,
I think based on the guidelines with allowing, because this is a non-contributing building. It's not visible from the public right of way. I think that this conforms. Does anyone have anything?
Yeah, I think we have to be careful with wood clad because the whole point is the wood needs to be on the outside, but the fact, like you said, that it is a non-contributing building. It was built in 2001 according to the database. And it's not at all visible from the public right away, not even at any angle. So I don't really see a problem with it, but I do think for the record, we need to continue to be careful with these clads because the whole point is for the wood to be visible. The fact that it's wood on the inside is not, it doesn't mean anything if the wood's not visible. But again, because this is the original building was built in only 2001, I don't see a problem with this alternative material.
I can't say that I do either.
I think we have a different discussion, even if it was visible from the public right of way, even with the date of the building of the structure, but the fact that it's not visible.
All right, would someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the door as represented in the sample.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, motion approved.
This is the one thing that could again, this is something on this. Your vote, this was not wrong, because really considered.
Thanks so much.
Non-contributing, and it's not visible.
So next we have 236 East Second Street, George Billings. Do we have a representative for this building? Okay,
I can answer questions about that one if you want.
perfect.
Isn't it? It's a modern building,
Mhm.
non-contributing, and he's replacing the wood flooring with wood flooring. Was it rotted out?
So I
Why is
see
it in
it's-
front of us?
I don't know.
It's because of the extent of replacement and the condition of the wood. So since there's been a lot of applications where there's been more rather less, it's always useful to come and just have a consensus. In this case, it's because it's all the flooring.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like the grooving has given out.
Mhm. It looks pretty warped.
Yeah.
Um,
And it goes down to the steps. So
Yeah.
it's always the extent of the replacement.
Yeah.
I think. You know, they're proposing replacement with wood, tongue and groove, I think. I think this is appropriate as presented, Do you have any, additional comments on this one?
Look at the scale and scope, and if that's what having consensus of what's happening, but no, I think the same thing, it's not appropriate. There's a lot of warping going on in the existing wood,
Mhm.
so I think this would be something.
Is there plans to paint it? There's nothing in the application. There's a lot of raw wood going up around
Yeah.
town, which is against the guidelines,
good
so I
point.
wanna make sure it's painted.
Would be, it's treated kiln dried lumber. So he probably could paint it pretty rapidly. Most people like to let it age for 6 months or a year anyway to be, so the paint will, stick a little better. But I don't propose for a second that he's gonna leave it raw. No, he just spent gonna spend a fortune to replace it.
That can be a condition. Put a condition on the approval that, after it's secured, that it needs to be painted for the guidelines and standards.
But yeah, I don't have a problem with the replacement at all. I think it's actually interesting that a newer building's already replacing its front porch, and we have 200-year-old buildings that are, out
Yeah.
of wood that's just fine.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lesson when everybody wants to rip out their 200-year-old wood and replace it with new wood, rather than just sand it and paint it, that, they might be sorry in the long run.
Yeah, I think that's the only condition that I.
Is that painting and staining, staining, simply?
So we need the or.
Or a motion?
I make a motion to approve the application for the replacement of the porch with tongue and groove in-kind wood replacement, with the stipulation that is painted after an appropriate curing period, painted or stained after an appropriate curing period.
Any second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Next, we have 122 Delaware Street, Alfred Boland, is there someone here representing his application? No. All right, so this is for, replacing or a shingle roof with a shingle roof with solar shingles. I think we have this in front of us
We have.
recently.
Yeah, how does
Did we
this
not?
differ?
It was denied at the approval meeting because the solar panels were on the front. In areas visible from the public right of way, and the guidelines do not allow for solar panels on rooftops visible from the public right of way. So,
Yeah, because I remember us talking about, why not putting it on the flat roof
Flat
instead of.
roof.
yeah, so this one is an updated, but if you look, you have to go to the back where there's a sketch showing where they want to put them. And the installation is actually on the rear slope.
Yeah,
Roof
so it'd
gable.
still be,
Yeah, so it's still visible from the public right of the side alley and the back, and it's very
Yeah.
prominent.
I mean, that building is visible from all angles, yeah, pretty much because.
And we'd also ask for details of the installation, you know, like how tall it would be, and how tall it would protrude and things like that, and we did not get those, so my recommendation was that the application be denied.
I agree with that.
And we saw we saw the sample the last time. Yeah.
I think the only way this application can ever be approved is if it's on the flat roof and it's a very low profile, because even that flat roof is so visible from the public right of way that if there's any kind of profile whatsoever, it would not be appropriate.
That's what we need to do, you know, just a solar panel, but all the attachments that go with it, so you have the actual pipe.
We make
Yeah,
that.
the pictures later show a lot of edging.
Yes, and there's edging, and then there's hardware, and there's.
And it also wasn't clear from the sample that we saw last time how they would fit together or what, as you said, what the attachments were or what the profile for those would be, because there was that there was like that cord, that connector that ran alongside.
Yes, and how that was sealed.
Make a motion to reject the application. Grounds of visibility.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to deny the application, please. That's
A little backwards.
it's a little backwards, but yes, it's just, when you say motion approved, it sounds. All right, so next we have 114 Harmony Street, Chris McCracken. This is replacing wood siding and 5 windows. Is there an applicant present? All right. So there's no applicant present for this one. I just want to.
I walked by this house and I don't see anything that's in need of replacement, quite honestly. Leila, did you have conversation with the applicant?
No, there was just documentation that was resubmitted, and there's just, there's not full clarity exactly on the extent of the siding, replacement. And why necessarily it would need to be done. They did update it to actually for the replacement windows, but they have changed the applications to show wood windows. You know, wood exterior and wood interior. But there's just still too many, I mean, there's general pictures of pictures, but no closer details. But I think this one would need to be a, now. The question is to make sure, if this was a resubmission, or a new submission. I think this was just, this was the first submission, we had a lot of questions that had to come to pass. So in its current state, although the windows are now acceptable, we would need to confirm what is the extent of the,
Yeah,
the wood siding.
but I would also say with the windows, just from the little bit that I can see, I mean, I can see on this picture that perhaps there's some, I mean, there's a storm window here also, an aluminum storm window. So it's difficult to make any kind of determination of kind of what the extent is, but what I'm seeing of the windows themselves, I mean, it looks like maybe they might need to be reglazed and painted, but I don't know that I'm seeing, just from these alone, I'm not seeing anything that necessarily warrants a full replacement. Um,
And the other thing is also it references 5 windows for replacement, but it shows pictures of 2.
Yeah.
So, I think there definitely needs to be a more informed conversation on what exactly is the scope and where. And I know it's probably a work in progress because the same application came last time with, roof work and gutter work. So, I understand what they're doing.
I mean, you haven't, and correct me if I'm wrong, Leila, but you said you haven't spoken to this applicant.
No. And we can certainly, follow up, because then, there's like talking about front windows and siding area with new trim package. Does that mean that all the front windows are also part of it needs to be changed or not? And that was hardy trim within the front are not supposed to be, hardy, so we can certainly discuss this further with them to get clarity. And then, but just trying to make sure that this is the first time this applicant, and I believe, yeah, this is the first time the application has come in. So we could revisit it and.
We don't seem to
But
have
they're not here to
information
kind of
to
do-
allow us to
Yeah.
make a decision, so
And-
therefore it has to be a rejection.
Right.
From the naked eye, there's just nothing that really, especially as far as the siding is clear, because it's visible from the public right of way, and I just don't see enough, anything to warrant replacement from the naked eye. As far as the windows, I don't see anything from the public right of way again. But as Tara said, with the storms, you can't really get a full idea.
And that's where close-up documentation as we did, you take elements and you poke them into the wood and you demonstrate, the conditions and things like that, so.
I also think a lot of this work that they're proposing too, this would qualify for the historic, preservation tax credit, program, so that's something that the applicant might want to look into as well. This isn't something that I think we should table just because the applicant isn't here to agree to table it, so I think that we would, for the motion, however we vote, we need to deny it here, and then I believe that if the applicant comes back with all of the information that we're requesting, they won't have to pay the $50 fee again. They can just resubmit it. Just want to make a note of that, so.
How would you frame the motion?
I would just say that the application is incomplete as proposed,
And the exact scope is unclear, it's not fully defined.
I'll make a motion to deny the application based on the fact that the scope of the work is not clearly defined, and from the materials presented and visual observation, the level of deterioration to warrant a full-scale replacement is not appropriate.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to 49 West Fifth Street, Margot Hayward Wells, the replacement of a rear door and 4 windows on the rear addition. Is there anyone here representing this application? Oh, yep.
Do the applicants have a general understanding that their cause is helped if they come and
Yes.
Oh,
They are.
oh,
there.
yes. Oh, yes.
let them know? that?
Mr.
Yes.
We had a previous application denied Bolin. Begged him to show up because we'd caught him working on 2 different jobs afterward, had to stop him. So he's not gonna, he's just gonna keep getting caught and,
We're trying to help these people. actually.
yeah.
I'd like to think that we're not that scary, but.
Well, 3 of us.
Leila, would you like to tell us a little bit about?
Yes.
Your findings on this?
So this was, replacing 1 door and 4 windows with Forvia anymore. And what happens is, we look at things for one, and administratively, and then if it's denied, then we leave it on the actual agenda, since it is an opportunity for the applicant to come and to question that, and, Forvia are vinyl windows, Forvia and Endure are vinyl windows, and those windows are not appropriate in the district anywhere. Yeah,
Yeah, whether it's new, whether it's new.
yes,
building
they are not. So his recommendation will be to deny the application.
I'm making a motion to deny on the basis of the non-compliant windows.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Sorry, just getting through. A lot of paper here. Uh, 122 Delaware Street, Alfred Boland, masonry repairs to deck area and back of building. And I don't believe Mr. Boland has appeared in the last 2 minutes, so we can proceed.
so is this some of the work you're referencing they already did? Because there's a lot.
Yeah,
of
repair
new
mine for 2.
Yeah, I was like,
It-
looking
it-
at this,
it-
like, I'm unclear at even what the scope is. We're talking about concrete piers and there are pictures of concrete post holes, remember those? So I was like,
But
They've
no,
already laid the concrete.
Yeah, part of it, we stopped him in the middle of the pour, but it's just not a repair to anything that was there before.
no.
And he's actually in the floodplain, so we have to do a little bit more paperwork. There's no reason he couldn't, but it's disheartening.
I'm sorry to see it go like this.
Um, Yeah, I just want to say, I realize that there are a lot of denials tonight, but this is why we have guidelines and standards, and it's why we have the information available, because we would much rather say yes. But we can't do that if we don't have the information in front of us so that we can make that determination.
The second year after you start saying yes.
It doesn't usually go like this,
No, it
quite
doesn't
honestly.
actually.
We're usually
I've
pleasantly
Bend over backwards
surprised.
to say yes.
Yeah.
There's no one here to explain the jobs to us.
I mean, we all live here too, so I mean, we like to say yes. So it's not clear what exactly this project is, am I correct? Okay, so I think based on that alone, I'm not really sure how we could approve this. It says a masonry repair, but this is new work, so this application is this.
Untruthful.
It's just.
Pants on fire.
Would someone like to make a motion? For whatever this is.
I don't even know how to word this.
I don't know either.
I make a motion to deny the application based on the fact that the project is unclear and the applicant is not present to explain And I think it should be on record that the work's already started. And we deny this work, and this work never went in front of the Historic Area Commission.
And we don't know what the work is.
That's a rather long, motion.
Is there a second?
We simply shorten the motion.
Motion to deny the application based on the fact that the applicant materials are unclear of the project requested
That's good.
and the fact that the applicant is not present.
I second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Motion. Okay. 11 West Sixth Street, Carolyn Travers, addition to side of property.
And again, this is actually, for the record, this is actually a consultation, not a consultation. I mean, so it's additional information.
So some expansion of the original packet.
This is an addition to what's in the packet. Jeff, do you need one?
Well, we need one for the record, but I saw it already, because
Here.
you
I
have,
also have, yeah.
So what's in the revised packet, is some additional views of the building from the other sides. The rear elevation, which was missing. Better notation about materials, based on my conversation on the layout and the standards. Just good. What, do you want a summary? Do you want to walk through the drawing sheet? Okay.
That'd be great.
So this is a single bedroom addition to the existing house. So that my client and owner.
If you hold up the illustration and point to it,
That's the original house, the addition.
Thank
you. So that you can age in place in the city. The front two-story portion of the house was built in the late
1895.
1895. And then it has two additions. Second story addition, I believe, in the rear, and then a one-story addition beyond that. Our addition will be on the side yard, and that's the only space left because the house is front to back on the lot lines. Second page, you can see the left side of the house where there's a bathroom addition, and then the rear of the house. Sorry, on the line. We have some views from the street, the neighborhood. You can see that there's two large evergreens that we're intending to keep. That do screen a lot of the backyard, back side yard. This sheet is new. This is views of the side of the house. And then you can kind of see the shape of the house and how in the visibility. Page 5 is the site plan. This is sort of where it gets into some of the meat of what we're asking for. So it's a non-conforming lot in its existing zoning. And that gives us some issues, obviously, in trying to add on to it. What we're asking HAC to approve as part of this process, and so that we can move to building permits and all, is to have a 5-foot setback on the left side, as opposed to what the zoning code kind of would tend to say, which is we need a total of 15 feet on both sides. So we have 7.6 on one side, we need a 7.4 setback on the other side. We follow the zoning code exactly, which is a very narrow addition. So we're looking just to basically go to the allowed 5-foot setback for the zoning. We're backing up to the garage with the neighbor, and we have the cemetery behind us. So in terms of encroaching on other people or others, I think we're fine with that. And I personally like to be a little over 5 feet off the property line, because then the wall construction doesn't have to be fire rated. So that's the one piece. So you can see the sort of progression of the house. So there's the front portion, the two back additions, and then our addition on the side with that little cutout. So we're not covering up the kitchen window. Page 6 is a large plan of the house. You can see the layout. So it's a bedroom, it's a closet, there's a space for laundry. The laundry currently is in the bathroom on the first floor, and we need to move it out so we can make a shower so that we can have basically a bedroom suite on the first floor. The current heat pump condenser is in the side yard, right where our addition is going. And so the intention is to move it around to the back so that we don't have to do extensive reworking of the lines. And Carolyn has talked to the church about basically putting this slightly over the line into the cemetery, and they are amenable to that solution. The elevations, we have the street elevation, and then we have a cutaway so you can see the front of the addition itself. While the current house is covered in vinyl siding, we're showing this with a wood siding product. If the committee is amenable to the idea of, given its distance from the street to an engineered wood siding product, that would be preferable for us, but we don't understand if you want to keep it to wood. And then the same for the windows, proposing the Marvin authentic divided light windows, given front and back are essentially public. But again, if you accept that the distance makes them a little less visible and would accept a simulated divided light, that would be preferable for us. And then we'll have trim boards on the corners. Look, the side elevation, it's not a very exciting side elevation of the existing house. And we're proposing no windows on here, partly because of the proximity to the neighbors. And so we just have the front and back for light. And then the rear, vision for completeness. That is.
I'm happy with it. Subject to approval of materials.
I just say thank you. This is really helpful for the additional information. All the pictures and the 3D models and everything, it gives a lot of clarity. And I do appreciate, going with the proper details. Things. To the wood window. I would say in terms of materials and guidelines, you say the preference is wood and we divide lights. I would say also that in terms of the hierarchy, this is clearly a secondary. Now, the visibility, it's visible. There's no, it's not far back enough, which, it's also will give you the fact you have space and light, right?
Maybe the tree won't be there.
Yeah, and so, and the cemetery means that you do have this space and breathing, although I would say that because of the hierarchy, this is one case where potentially I would consider wood windows with simulated.
Yes,
lights.
also, when I said simulated,
You mean applied?
light, still a wood, still
Yes,
a Marvin
yes.
wood product, just.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, this is a case, obviously, there's the application of the guidelines, but if we're being about the hierarchy of the space and the hierarchy of the elevations, as long as it's wood, but it would be, wood applied muntins versus true muntins, I think that's something that I would be comfortable in concept approving. And the other thing is you currently have a wire mesh fence,
There's a chain link fence on the rear.
chain
of
link
the
fence,
property,
yes, on the
Rear
rear
and
end.
side.
And are you planning to do any changes to that fence for now or not?
It's been there for at least 50 years.
The rear one will be affected by the addition.
Yeah, so what are you planning on? Are you moving it or?
Removing it.
And just leaving it open.
Excuse me.
You're not going to replace it with anything.
No.
Okay.
And I mean, I know that when you look at the street, there's always this notion of having centered windows. For the street facing one, but I also understand the fact that there is the existing covered doorway on the side. That would potentially, and also the way you're sort of trying to organize the whole space with the washer dryer. So I think it's not unusual having a symmetrical opening on the first story, it's a secondary. I guess I would say in terms of massing, hierarchy and materials, the proposed concept. In my view meets the design standards and guidelines for secondary edition, and I really appreciate the commitment to the actual material.
We like people to stay in town.
Yeah.
But
Right. Are there any, additional comments, from anyone on the committee?
I'm happy.
Yeah, I think I would just like to clarify that since this is a consultation, I believe the applicant's intent is that if the concept and the massing of materials are approved by PAC, this could be the kind of motion that allows that should building permit drawings come, they could be reviewed for matching the approved concept materials and scales for tier one review to go towards building permit. I think that was the intent.
Are you comfortable with that?
Well, that was the intent that they had
And-
expressed.
That it's, the other projects I've had here, we've done it that way, and I prefer that, because then I get all your input before I've gone too far down the road of drawings,
right,
and it tells me what direction.
Yeah.
And what you're doing.
And you are in fact approving the side yard setback at whatever the heck it is. 5 feet,
And that was another
5 feet,
question.
because that's going to the Board of Adjustment then, right, for variance.
You tell me the process.
Yeah, that's gonna go to the Board of Adjustment for variance, can't go to the Board of Adjustment unless the Historic Area Commission recommends it.
I think we're in agreement with it. Get a motion put together.
So that's why the motion needs to,
Needs to reflect that too, yes. And then after that, it also gives us the opportunity, as you dig in, if there are other issues that pop up, then we can talk about them before you're at the permit level and we can address them.
So, the idea is the motion would be to approve this as a, are we,
I think it'd be two portions. One would be to approve the setback of 5 feet, so they could proceed to go into the Board of Adjustment because it's a variance. And then the other would be to give a conceptual improvement for the addition itself, its massing, its material, and its design. Subject, the permit drawings being reviewed for conformance with the approved intent as a tier one. And then also adding the comment that now is put that should there be any changes in massing, form of material and scale, then
yes.
the application has to come back to HAC.
and maybe specifically recognizing they've proposed a rear window on the lawn, on the property.
Yes.
Cause that's gonna be another thing for the Board of Adjustment to consider.
The encroachment into the cemetery doesn't,
That's,
but I mean, that's not anything,
That's not
That
for us,
we
that's
have
for
to-
the cemetery.
Yeah, I mean, because you already, the way it currently stands, right? It's on the property line. Does the window exist in the, yes,
Yes.
so that's
Those are all
already,
existing windows. Yeah.
yeah, so that's already.
we're just gonna
already
add
there.
one more window, right?
Yeah. And the actual encroachment would be the heat pump condenser.
Yes.
In the back. Would that require the Board of Adjustment to okay that?
But no, cause they could, if the church didn't agree to it, they could put it on the side. They could put a geothermal in. There's plenty of different ways this could be handled, so that's not.
If the church ever changes its mind, it is movable equipment that could be relocated.
But the window, one more window in the back wall and the, certainly if it was someone's house, we wouldn't permit it if there was something that was
Right
gonna be
there.
there, but. And then the side yard setback, those are spelled. If you agree to those, then they can proceed to get this done as quickly as possible.
I think it's like, there.
Form of motion.
so the first motion would be to, the first motion would be to approve the 5-foot setback, and would that also include, the window, installation of the window on the property line?
That'd be great.
Make a motion to approve the setback and the rear window on the property line.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
First motion approved. And
Thank you, everybody.
then the second motion, the conceptual approval of the design, yeah, in terms of material, concept, design, scale, massing, as presented. With, I guess I'm making the motion now, but if someone wants to. Also with the understanding that if any of the materials change, it has to go back to HAC or to the Historic Area Commission, for review. But if the plan matches the design as presented, then it can be approved as a.
And specifically an engineered wood product for the siding.
No, so what's presented is wood on the drawing. What I was asking is if the commission was comfortable with either an engineered wood product or also a simulated design light. I'm not hearing that.
I mean, I think the wood on siding is a preferred option. I don't know if any members of the commission have an opinion when I talk about the hierarchy about simulated, applied muntins, wood muntins on wood windows versus divided lights as they're here. I think that was everything that was requested.
I'm okay with the simulated divided lines.
It's a gray area in the guidelines because it's an addition to a contributing building, so. I'd prefer true since it is a contributing building, but I don't see anything saying it can't be. It just says architectural features of new construction complement, not compete with existing features and historic materials of the existing building.
I would prefer the wood siding.
Definitely wood
Yeah, the
siding, I think that's
But for the windows, I would be fine with the simulated divided light, wood window.
On the back of the house, would the new window match the other windows on the back of the house?
That's the intention, yes. Well, what I have to double check is about egress requirements, so I'll have to see if I can make that work with a double hung or whether it may have to be a casement with a heavy then bumped in. Different to mimic the double hung part. That's because the code official.
It's such a nitpick.
Satisfies so much.
We appreciate it.
I think we still need a motion though.
Yes. Okay, so. Conceptual approval, as a tier 1 if the materials, concept, design, scale, massing. As presented, with the wood siding, simulated divided light, wood.
Second, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved.
Thank you.
Thank you for, thank you for
Say yes.
Yeah.
Therapeutic.
No, we started out strong and then. Took a turn.
Oh, wait, I do have this in my packet.
I think these are, I don't,
old.
yeah, I don't think they have, the additional information.
Yeah.
So, the next item we have is, Fort Casimir, at the site of, Street and the Strand. Trustees of the Newcastle Common, fence installation. I'm assuming that you are the representative here.
My name is Thomas H. Wilson. I'm a member of the trustees of Newcastle Commons. we have been working on the site of Fort Cashmere with the property owner there. The green walking areas, if you would, it's not a park, it's a site. Where the fort was and there, and the reason the fort was built there was because of the view of the river. So we wanted to put something up, and this is, fence may be the wrong word to use, but a border to keep part of them. People love to park on the river. And so we're looking at something that would be non-intrusive. That's why this is a maximum of 3 foot high. Something that will last and, provide pictures and thank you for permission to move forward.
We just have the cover and the invoice, we don't have pictures.
I only have one. For myself, but it did submit that. Got the picture of the wood perception. Now they would, the post, the fencing would be 8-foot sections with a 4-foot opening between each section that would allow people to walk through. However, you wouldn't be able to drive a car through or any type of motor vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, typically, also, it needs to be a plan showing the exact extent. But I think the primary issue here is that you are proposing these, polypropylene injected molded fencing, which is plastic. And plastic is.
Well, the reason I went with that was number one to, prevent the rotting. Because in that area, wood rots very fast. And, the playgrounds in your historical area are bordered with plastic. So I thought it would be appropriate if we were acceptable if we were to border our park with plastic. That was,
I can't speak to playground or application.
well, if it's in your
I-
historical area, you have to speak. to it.
If it comes in front of me, I certainly do, and I know that I've been talking about.
This
it for a
application
while.
stands on its own feet.
Plus, also all applications stand alone.
We have to consider everything on a case by case basis.
That's the second part, like say, also applications stand alone and plastic. A whole fence of plastic, polypropylene. All across an area, as you pointed, is quite beautiful. There's a lot of place for the view, which means that as you can see on your pictures, you're seeing not just when you're across the other river, you're seeing as you're walking along it. And that's not an appropriate material. It doesn't meet the guidelines.
But you wouldn't know it's plastic from as far as 5 feet away. It has the same texture as wood. It's the same color as wood.
You are correct, sir. You're absolutely correct. However, it's also correct that it needs to be wood.
And I think we can't really. It's not an appropriate material and we can say that, but we also don't have a sample of the material in front of us to even look at. But I think just based on the extent of this area, the fact that it is a historic site, a historic site within the historic district, I really think it really needs to be made of wood.
And one of the things, particularly when it comes to fencing and others, we've had this conversation where that's probably just not alternate materials, right, which are not materials. They are, but that mimic, the materials that mimic That's why they're not appropriate on elevations visible from the public right of way, because often you are quite close, and then when you get into proximity, then you can really tell. And it's true, they're getting better and better in terms of the color but you will know if something is there in plastic and doesn't change at all, and everything else around it is changing. So there are many levels to why alternate materials are not appropriate where they can be experienced so directly. And that's one of them. That's just on background and rationale.
All right, so let's. Follow along here. So if it was wood conceptually, it could be approved
Mhm.
You know,
without, again,
that looks good to me, on one commissioner.
and then as wood, it would be tier one.
I think because the whole fence, it does have to be a tier two with fencing and things like that. New fencing has to come back. So because we don't really see the design of the fence in this, other than the drawings that you just provided today. So I think that would be the challenge that would have to come back to have. Unless one wanted to look.
We're
at the drawings
sympathetic to a
individually.
wood fence.
I hear that.
Wouldn't you? Since it is important to replace that fence,
Mhm.
could you consider the wood fence sort of fudging the design and leaving it in Lila's hands to approve the design of the wood fence as a tier one?
You don't mean fudge, you mean set down the parameters for the design.
Right.
Sure.
I mean,
And if
I
he
have,
doesn't approve, they can come here.
Right.
and We can make a different decision.
Is this ultimately the design you would choose? Basically, we would, but it would be as presented here, but would, is this what you're thinking?
I think the question is, do you want us to enter this into the record as being the preferred design? Should they want to do an approval so that in concept, so that it becomes a tier one? Since this is the first time that we have seen that.
I'm opposed to being with wood, so I'm not.
But the design itself,
The design, yes, that's the design we want, and that's, so that would be whatever material we decide to make it from, that's the design.
Yes, I'm opening up public comment, for this.
Hi, Dr. Flanagan. I lived on Second Chestnut. I know that Tom was further down Second Street. The word about this fencing got around our little part of the street. There's nobody excited about putting a fence up that's gonna block the river view and block that area off. And, it's akin to putting a red light at an intersection where there's no traffic and no accidents. I've lived on that corner for a long time. Tom's lived down at the end of Bull Hill for a long time. I've been there longer than he. And the only time where there's cars, for the most part, that drive onto that part of Fort Cashmere is when there's a city event and they tell them to park there. So it's on a regular daily basis, on the weekends, there's no traffic parking on that Fort Cashmere site. It simply isn't true. And years ago, and Tom should remember this, they had telephone pole bollards there, with cable stretched across on just one part of it, to keep traffic out of there. And that was only halfway. So, the people on my part of the street, on the lower 100 end of Second Street, they're opposed to it for two reasons. Number one is, it would be an eyesore more than anything, having that fence there and obstruct the river view. And secondly, it's the justification for it just doesn't make any sense. It's you're putting a Band-Aid on the cut when you don't have a cut.
Well, we have several police reports from people being removed from that area. The Valadecas is at the end of the Strand, had an incident where people were doing inappropriate things down there, parking on the river.
They do that down at the end of Third Street, so we gotta fly that off.
We had, we've had, I have one resident here opposed to it, saying it's blocking view, we wouldn't be able to see it 3 feet high. And according to the drawings, that would be the maximum of 3 feet. As you can see by the drawings, there's no, the reason the fencing was put there is because Fort Cashmere was put there because of the view of the river. And being conscious of that, we wanted people to have the view of the river. So if you were even parked alongside of the fence, you wouldn't see it. It would be that close to the road. I think approximately, we said 3 feet off the road all the way up. So, I think you could find as many people that are in favor of it as you would people who are against it. It's not a parking area. People that park there during events, and the only one where they really take advantage of, no fence is during fireworks of Separation Day. That's where people park, they get a very good view of the fireworks, but it's private property. It's not city-owned property. And we do not want to continue maintenance of the cars, because when people park there, they don't care if it rained the day before or not, and we're constantly having, a landscaper down there, cleaning the park. There's been several incidences where we've had to remove tire marks, things like that, so,
That's trustee property.
yes. It's private property, it's not city-owned property. So we think we have a right to fence in our property. We think we have a right to keep people from, driving on it. We're allowing the public to walk through it. As a matter of
You're
fact,
allowing us to?
it's, yeah, it's the unofficial, it's probably the unofficial dog park in town. Everybody walks their dogs there.
Okay.
I'm not really against the fence. And you do have a right and somewhat a public safety issue of controlling the people driving on that area. I'm curious, in the proposed fence design here, there's gaps, I'm assuming, for when you do allow people to park in the field, but how is that going to be roped off when you don't want people to walk in the field? Is that gonna
That, the gaps are 4 foot wide,
be? Okay,
so you can't drive a car there,
Okay.
therefore the public to walk through it.
okay.
It's walking access.
And there'll be the rationale being, one or not, that's not something I speak to, because it's the commission members that will talk about that aspect. But in terms of design, have the segments, your 4-inch opening is gonna be
Or there's
4 feet, are gonna be every what, every,
every 8 feet.
oh,
So-
it's literally, it's a
there'll be-
segmented fence, it's like
Yeah.
8 feet, 4.
8 feet, 4 foot opening, 8 feet, 4 foot opening for 360 feet.
And this will not impact the view shed as far as a view of the river.
No, as a matter of fact, we have over the years, probably the last 7 years, had a project to clear the view of the river by doing away with phragmites and invasive weeds.
So just a quick question, and then I know there's public comment. This is not representative, right? If you say there's a 4-foot opening, then an 8-foot fence, and a 4-foot opening, an 8-foot fence, this is not actually representative.
First.
Hmm?
They only
You
have
can
the
see
first.
the first, yeah, that's
Yeah,
what it's.
but what I mean is I'm seeing a 4-foot opening here.
Right.
There'll
then
be one,
These
every-
are like 4 segments that look as if they're 4 feet, so this is actually 16. And then I have another one. It's just, I'm trying to get a sense of the rhythm, that's all.
the rhythm is
8x4.
8-foot
It's 38,
sections.
okay, so it's not exactly this, okay.
Right.
Yeah, so this drawing is not, this picture is not. It's more gonna be little segments like this.
So the visual representation is not quite
Yeah, it's not-
representing what
it's-
your
it's-
intentions are.
It's much more, it's more fragmented, so it's.
Very representative. I don't see it looking any different.
Well, if you look, you
No.
have continuous segments. You don't
Yeah.
have
Well,
one of these, a gap, and one of these. I'm just trying to have full clarity so nobody's surprised. So this is actually all broken up into, there'll be these 2 plus a gap, 2, and then all of these that look continuous is not gonna be the case. It's gonna be 2 and then a gap, 2 and then a gap.
it should be one, there'll be one 8-foot section.
Yeah, I'm
One-
just, Mm-hmm.
That will be an 8-foot section, okay? Between those
Mhm.
will be 4-foot sections, there will be no 2 together.
excuse me, I just wanna approach it there. So we have full clarity when you present it, should you decide to okay with the one.
The way this is represented, I am calling 4 feet,
Oh,
4
yes.
feet gap. You
4
have,
feet, this would be 4 feet, this
this
is
would be
not
a gap,
scale.
exactly. That over there is continuous, that's
Yeah.
also incorrect. So it
Right.
should be 2 gap, 2, and I'm saying 2 because like 4 feet, 4 feet, we're going in segments.
Right, okay.
Okay.
Good evening. I feel, three issues with what was presented. One, I do believe that design, is horrendous and would be an eyesore for down there. Number 2, wood, anything other than wood, if you say any other place needs to be wood, that needs to be wood. And 3, I go down Bull Hill area, and unless I'm missing something, once every 10 years, once every 5 years, a car might go on there. I've never seen tire tracks, deep tire tracks, nothing. If that's what you want to do is put a fence there, irregardless of material or what other people believe, then just be truthful, tell them. But I definitely believe it should come back here, an overview layout, as well as the actual product sample. Everybody else has to do it. Guess what?
Well, we did submit product samples.
They weren't wood, were they? Oh, well, historic, especially where Fort
It's not a
Cashmere
debate,
is.
it's for
Yeah,
public
I-
comments.
Well, no, I'm just saying, especially Fort Cashmere, if you look at
No,
the
understood, but
layout.
your comments are directed to room. It's not a debate back and forth between
Oh.
the district.
Correct, I apologize. But also where Fort Cashmere actually is an extremely historical site. And I do not believe that design of fence is appropriate for that type of, call it solemn, just, that's an important place. And that design, doesn't go with anything. Could be a commercial place of today, but definitely would. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments regarding this application? I just have one that was submitted, by email this afternoon that I need to read into public record. This is from Dorsey Fisk. And it states, as a resident and as a former trustee, I'm writing to express my concern over the trustees' plan to use polypropylene plastic molded to resemble wood for a fence at the Fort Casimir site. This is a thoroughly inappropriate material to use at a 17th century site. If they are reasoning that it is less expensive and longer lasting than wood, I would point out that the trustees manage millions of dollars of assets, which according to their charter are to be used for the benefit of the town residents. To cheapen things done in our name is a disgrace. Work that the trustees do on trust property should be held to the same standard as that of other residents in town. Signed, Dorsey Fisk, 26 East 3rd Street. So I think. I think we understand. I think this is just the concept, right? This is just what this is supposed to be, the concept, and. This would be the actual design is what I'm. Okay. So is everyone here clear on that?
Well, clarity, the concept is that what you see in that picture would be just much more fragmented.
Okay,
So that's
So-
not the actual concept.
right,
That would
you
be
wouldn't
it, and then
have,
you would have
right,
You would
that
have
open.
continuity.
it would just be essentially,
Right, right.
Mhm.
It's not for us to mark up, it's for them to present. That's as I see it.
Mhm.
I mean, this is good for our discussion,
Yeah.
but
mhm,
they need to present, a rendering of what it looks like,
yeah,
in my opinion.
Does it have to be this tall? Because, like in national parks, I've seen things like that, but they're like this tall.
Well, due to
Just
the
in a-
contour of the ground, we just set a maximum 3 feet. So there would be places where it's lower.
Would be less.
The other thing to consider is the height relative to the cars.
Right,
It's
sure. Make it too
Oh,
short.
yeah,
it'll just
definitely.
mhm,
be destroyed.
I mean, the contours, no, contours are contours. If a fence is a fence and it's 3 feet, you're
Yeah.
not gonna shrink. To like be lower at some,
I
the
think-
plan is, it's gonna follow the contour. It's not, you're not gonna have the contour catchment. So for clarity, it's gonna have whatever height, it's gonna be consistent.
I think I think everyone here understands what you want to do, and I don't have an issue with that, but I think I would like to see a more complete plan, just so we can be more certain in what we're approving. So with that, I think it would be good to see, I think it would be good to see a plan that shows, the full length of where the fence would be placed with the area. And then just, just the appropriate materials and is there anything else that,
And I'm happy to have, from now to the next TAC meeting, I'm happy to look, email me
Yeah.
something, we can talk about that, so when we come, then I can support it.
yeah, and then that would set everything up so that you'd have everything and then
Yeah.
we could.
I think we're okay with the fence, this materials and a proper graphical representation and
Yeah, an
detail.
actual, a plan. So would you agree to table that until the next meeting? Pending bringing the plan and having the materials.
It's just if this is an application, I have to come back with different materials than what's stated in the application and different and additional documentation. Would that be something that we table for a revised submission, or would it have to be denied and revised and resubmitted? I know there's no additional cost, but what was the cleanest way to do that?
Yeah,
Right, there's no cost, so it really doesn't matter whether the application is withdrawn or tabled or denied,
okay,
because he's gonna come back next month and
okay.
try it again.
So do you agree with, do you need something more than this?
If I could speak,
This-
that representation of how the installed fence
You just
appears
need
seems
this.
to me to be confusing.
This
I would
is all
like
you
that
need.
to be accurate
And
relative
plan.
to your intent,
Yeah, and I
The site
think,
plan just showing where the fence is.
yeah,
and
and
also to indicate you have wood.
then I think an aerial view marking where the fence would be helpful as well.
Plan view, plot view.
Are there any other comments? Questions? Someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to deny the application on the basis of non-wood use and unclear representation of the sections and the gaps intended.
Second,
All in favor?
I
Motion carries. So, thank you. Let's move on to, 166 East Second Street. This is a replacement of porch windows.
Yes.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, you'll see on the pictures, the porch. And actually, I wanted to give you this, just for. Okay. Here you go. This is what. This used to look like. This was in a book on Newcastle. And, that's these grounds and people who think of that. So the first floor has an open porch walking up to the front door. And then to the left side, at some point, probably in the 50s, they enclosed it. And basically the way they constructed it, that wasn't meant to last a long time because of basically the size of the wood. And it wasn't real heavy, not even 2x4s. So it's, no matter how you tried to maintain it, you couldn't maintain it. There's some, the arched windows that have the different divisions in the lights. One of those fell completely out. The front one, you can actually push on the window and it rocks. So, and there's rotting, they're all rotted throughout. So I was considering what to do to replace it. And walking through Newcastle, you look at the Jefferson House on the Strand and Delaware Street. It has a wonderful first and second floor porch. Second and Harmony Street. There's a wonderful porch there. There's on the Strand, it used to be the old where Chris Cashman lives. There's porches there, and further on down on Second Street. So I was just looking at the ones in the area that are close to me, and it dawned on me, it's like, it would be attractive to have a nice screened porch. So what my proposal is not to build a screen porch, but take out all those old window casements, that window construction, remove all that. And you see the picture examples, and then just to build the framing similarly. So it mimics what was there, but then just make that a screened enclosure.
You see what I'm pointing at?
Yes.
So this would be 3 screened.
Yeah, the brick stays the same, the columns stay the same,
Got the fan light overhead.
I wanted, there's some conversation about that. Some of them are damaged and they can't stay. I mean, the ones, like I said, the ones completely out. I wanted a screen porch. I didn't want any other treatments in there. That's what, I know it doesn't make any difference what else is in town, but that's the guidance that I gave myself, what else is in town. and some of the most historic streets in Newcastle. So I just simply wanted a screen porch. Now, there is the window enclosures that are on the porch. You'll see one that says A, where that's actually, you can enter that enclosed porch right now off of the open porch. That's in pretty good shape because it hasn't been exposed to any weather, you know. So what my intent there is just to remove the windows and to remove the door and to screen in the window openings, you know, put a screen door on there. And I figured it doesn't have to, but I figured, well, being the arched window there is in decent shape there, just to leave it as homage, you know, to the house. And then because it is a different entrance, but you know, that could come out too if I wanted to make everything the same.
If I may?
Yes, please.
So, one on the condition, pictures you have, of the pictures like I took and the applicant kindly lent me one of his screwdrivers. So you can clearly see that it's the condition of the wood, except for the one that's sort of covered and protected now. In the front of the street. So in terms of the need for the replacement, I think that is something that would be justifiable. I think the proposal on the door that's under the porch, Second Street, you know, the one that you're saying, the type A, would pretty much stay as is, except that the glazing will be replaced with screening. I think that is also not an issue. For the others, particularly the rear entry to the porch, and you can see those pictures towards the end that I took, where you sort of see the rear entry. You also see how this arch transom is sort of like a theme throughout. And this is where I think putting screening in those openings to replace them is not an issue, but mimicking the design that's there now in terms of the trim and the windows, and we talked about how that can be applied, is something that I would strongly recommend, including the curved transom, that in my perspective could be screened also, but at least keep that half ellipse that's at the top of the arch. So the examples that are provided in many cases are not on the public right of way, they're more on the back, they're secondary rear porches that are screened in. The one example that's given at the intersection, you know, of Delaware and Second Street, the example there, the parallel, we could say if one were to choose to screen it but remove the railing that has that detail. And that would not be something that I would be recommending. So
I'm guessing that railing was there and they screened it later.
yeah, and I mean, so the thing is now a big part, and even though there is the original picture, a big part of the character of this building is actually all the additions, including we talked about how like craftsmanized it with the heavy porch, you know, in the second story, and that brick and that arch is part of it. And also, I mean, they've been there since the 50s, and this has been quite a while, and it's also part of the impact that this porch has. So if one were to screen it, I would strongly recommend replicating in all of the openings a sense and a scale of what is already there. And that would also include having if you're screening the upper half ellipse, it will be having a trim around it, it's replicating what was there currently, except that it's glazed. And also sort of like with the breakdown, you know, of what are the side lights, in a sense, what you're trying to do. It can evoke it with trim that's applied to it, but that would be much closer to what's currently there. And that is something that I would recommend.
My intent is to build something that's going to last, and quite frankly, the way that they build it, in order for it to make it more structurally sound, it needs a a little bit more. The spacing of the framing on the original is probably too far. It's like, walls that need to be 16 inches on center and, although I'm not doing that, I'm trying to, do something that is a blend of matching what was there, and I think I've done that pretty well, but also make it more structurally sound.
Good question, not that it relates to your request, but what's the history behind this building?
It was it was built by JB or MB Fleming around 1905. And he was a rich, I don't say banker, he was a rich realtor, developer. He was a rich developer. And actually the Flemings, some may recall that, but the Flemings were one of the largest property owners in Newcastle. And related to the Deemers actually. It was a private home for many years, and then it actually became basically a veterans club after World War II. And then after that, it became a nursing home. And the house it was used hard, at that point in time. And then in 1964, when my parents bought it off of the Flemings, and they passed away, I inherited. And it's been a private residence ever since. And yeah, so that's the history of it.
It just has the appearance that it had been used for public purposes, so.
Yeah. I mean, it's a 4-square home. I'm not sure how many of those are in Newcastle, but I don't think too many. If this may be the only one, central corridor, 4 rooms off of the corridor, and the same thing on the second floor. I tried at one point in time to turn the original, it is a carriage house, into a little apartment, but I was denied on that because the carriage house in the back, the garage, was built with the same brick as the original house. And that's the only property in Newcastle that was done. So, but so I've maintained that in its original condition, except I just put electric in there. Put a couple light bulbs in there. But I mean, I understand, the concept of preserving that archway. But that just, to me, that kind of combines the openness of the screen porch, and I just want that open feel, like some of the examples that I gave you.
I think one of the things is you're looking at the term of design, because it's actually masonry. We're comparing these two things, right? We're comparing the image here, which is what we currently have, the fairly ornate arches.
Yeah.
And with something that's just gonna be this.
Yes.
And at the same time, part of the character of what was put in there with the glazing is that it's something that is fairly robust, even if not within the design, but it's fairly robust to sort of fit with the brick masonry around it. If you put something very light like this between the brick masonry, it'll be a contradiction in terms of how, because you've noticed all the examples you gave where it's simplified, other than the fact, that it's not appropriate in the original design. Putting that all aside, right, and what I explained before, the fact is all the examples that you gave that have this kind of thing are in the back, but also they're wood structures. So you do not have that complete disconnect in terms of the thickness and materiality. So I think that's why this is part of, and like you said, it's been there for a while, and it's something that's consistent with the change of uses, which are part of the significance of a property. and its story. That's where, that's also making it that much more important to be able to maintain that.
I just want to screen for it. Screening.
I
I mean, it's, I mean,
I'm more than happy to.
I-
do that, but-
there's, what I want to do, there's nothing contrary in any of the Historic Area Commission guidelines to it. Other than saying, well, we want you to try to keep the same character, but I don't think that that's an absolute requirement. I think by the way I'm trying to maintain the same divisions, if you want to call it, as the other one, which makes sense, quite frankly, to do it that way anyhow. So I am giving some homage to what was there. But I enjoyed, I thought the other ones in the Jefferson House and some of the other historic homes, they look nice.
We're trying to help you.
Yeah.
To me, I think one of the issues with changing the design completely is then that becomes it's not like an in-kind replacement anymore, it's a
Yeah.
completely new design.
Yes.
And I think with that, I think we would need to see, a full scale, like sort of drawings of how that would look.
But I definitely can't keep what's there. It's gonna fall out. I mean, it's literally on its way to falling out.
I don't see.
And I don't think I've changed the design that much. I mean, the only other thing I can do is rebuild everything that's there. But that's not a screen for it.
Maybe if you provide some additional detail like this, the typical before and after, or 3 windows or 9 windows or what, and walk us through it a little more visually.
I thought I actually did that with the details on each section there with how that was going to look.
No, everything you provided there's a lot of detail in this and we really appreciate it. And this is very helpful too. We asked for this and don't get this that much of the previous look of the property. But traditionally, in order to vote on what it's going to look like after it's done, if you actually inserted this into where it is, so it would be like an architectural rendering of what your window design looks like without the transom, half fan light. So that we would be able to say, yes, this would look good as opposed to the fan light that's there currently. Otherwise.
Our interpretation.
Otherwise, we're just speculating what it would look like. It might look good. You might decide it doesn't look that good after, we would hate for you to put that window in there and then say, wow, that doesn't look good after all. It's not the replacement that we're concerned about. It's clear that the replacement has to happen.
And I don't think replacing with screening is a problem.
No.
Like the glass with the screening, I think it's just more this design that is now part of this building, and it's been there for over 50 years.
Yeah,
which-
there's a 50-year. So some of it, yes, we're a historic review board, so we look at the historic relevance of everything, but also we're an architectural review board, so we want to make sure that it looks in keeping with the general balance and structure of.
Could I ask a question? Is there other than character or something like that, is there a specific guideline as far as not being wood or not using screen or, not painted pink? Is there a specific requirement in the Historic Area Commission guidelines that this does not need?
I said, ironically, you could paint it pink because
I'm
when they
sorry.
did the guideline, ironically, you could paint it pink because the guidelines do not, we do not decide on color. It was decided here that it's not the role of the.
Yeah, there's some interesting colors in Newcastle.
But, yeah, and I think the guidelines is you want to do something that mimics or replicates the rhythm and the scale of what was there.
Yeah.
What is always open to. screening is a proper material. Often it depends what people want, but transparent screening is actually even better because then you sort of don't really see it. And I think, if I were just take simply,
I mean,
so that's where it's coming from. Yes, there are those parameters that.
and I think that's part of the rub that people have is that, you walk all around town, you see all these screen porches. And, it's like, okay, Fred's got one, Tom's got one, Jack and Mrs. Smith has one. And yeah, I want to do the same thing. And so you're doing something that is essentially identical to what somebody else has done. And it's in a variety of homes, a variety of designs. And then, you can't do that. And, there's a rub and I know you're not trying to be unfair, but people, this is what, the perception that people have is they feel, this is kind of unfair. I mean, they're everywhere else in town.
But we're
And
not
I
saying you
can't
can't
do
have a
this.
screen.
And I'm not saying that you're doing anything nefarious, but you have to understand how people feel.
We're not saying you can't have a porch.
Yeah, you can have the screened porch. The issue is that you want to change a design that's already there. And if that's what you want to do, there are other steps that have to be taken, like.
I mean, can I get an approval based on putting in this, fake, I'll call it fake because it's not a real, but this, window, not a window treatment, this design treatment, this applied thing that would kind of mimic that original arched window.
I think one of the things that we're trying to do, because and this is definitely not you, but there have been other cases where directions were given about concepts and approval, and then things wound up being quite different than what was the intent. That's where there's too much uncertainty to provide that at this point, because for example, again, if we're with this conversation we have, like, in this way, you have the 3 bays, but you're also putting for stability a line there, which actually is a line that does not exist in the verticality. So I think that's where there are these different components where if you just went vertical, this part you could keep and then have something that echoed the curved transom. I think there's too much theoretical and there's just so much that can be put into motion, in terms of the concept to be able to do that.
Okay,
So
so,
that's just my take.
so if you were asking about what specifically in the guidelines is ruling what our discussion here is about. And if you look at the guidelines for contributing or key buildings under the window policy, under design considerations, letter D, section 2 is design considerations. Section D is if the building is a mix of historic styles, which is what you have here, or periods of construction, the replacement window should be consistent with what was used during the era in which the portion of the building in which it was being installed was built. The following treatments are not appropriate. Replacement windows that don't fit in the historic opening or require modifying historic lintels, surrounds, or trim. So that is why we say we would need to see an actual rendering of your proposed window in that space to see if we feel like it appropriately reflects the era of construction that you are rehabilitating. We're not saying you can't have a screened in porch. We're just saying that right now, the fan light, the fan window represents the period in which that addition was placed on the house when the porch was enclosed. So we would need something that simulates that era as well, whether it be a reproduced fan light or whether it be what you're proposing, but we would need that rendering to make sure it looks appropriate in that space.
So,
Can I say something?
Sure.
If you were given a blank piece of paper and a pencil, and the 4 commissioners here were given the same blank piece of paper and a pencil, and all of us were instructed to draw what you're asking to install, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different visions. It would be
Well,
represent. we're asking you to kind of clarify a bit
Mhm.
so we can make final determinations, suggestions, or approvals or rejections. Right now, in my mind, I know it screens, I know you have rotten wood, there's things you want to do, but I'm not sure we're all sharing the same understanding.
Well,
That's what I would like to see.
I'll clarify it on my end. I'm an engineer. I've been an engineer for, 40+ years. And so that drawing is something that reflects a design that somebody would be able to take that and do something with. Aside from that, just so I'm walking away from here with clarity, okay? So if I get rid of these here, right? And take them all the way down. This is what I'm being told over here. Just want to make sure that we're all on the same page for when I come back, okay? And then, on this top portion is put that fan window in. It's not, no lights, no glass, no light or anything like that, all screens. Then the way it is right now, there's a small window there, there's a small window there. This gives a large window, goes all the way down, but I'll maintain that all screening, and this is where the fan light is, the fan treatment is. If I do that, then we're all on the same page.
I would like to see that overlaid on the image of your house.
Mhm.
This is how the window looks now.
Mhm.
This is what this window
Okay.
specifically looks after you make that shade. Then
Okay,
we go to the next, then you show the entire house.
Alright.
So you have some cut and paste to do with some graphics.
okay, but again, just like he was here, for guidance, just to make sure that it was all apples and oranges. That there was apples and apples instead of apples and oranges. If this is what we're asking for, and we're all on the same page, I'll give you that. And that's something that, if you look at the rendering, if you look at it on the house, this is something that you'll be able to go through and approve this with.
You see how you showed this existing.
Yeah,
windows?
yep.
You have existing, you have the same view, except the overlay of what you're planning to do.
Okay.
If you could do that with the whole house shot, now we really have detail to talk about. To say we love it, we don't love it. But.
I mean, your guy's gonna love it because you're gonna get what you want. I'm not gonna love it, but.
No, but you have to end up, it's your money and it's your house,
Yeah.
and you have to have the satisfaction
That's
of
a good
enjoying
point.
your house.
That's a good point.
That's the absolute point.
Yeah.
And we have an obligation to the community as well. And we try to be fair and even handed.
So, let me just look at these. So the front facing windows, that's just going to be just a in-kind replacement. Because they don't have the fan.
Which one is this?
The front facing windows on the porch,
No, they had the fan, it fell out.
They don't have the thing.
That one, that's the one
ones
that's,
behind the trees.
yeah, behind the trees, that one's rotted so bad that it's about ready to fall out.
Probably the
So that was a temporary fix. There's a picture on the inside.
it's a board there.
Yeah, you can see it right, it's a board, yeah.
It's a board it's just been placed over it.
Okay.
Yeah. And these are the conditions as of Monday. When I took it.
If we're seeing, now Leila, if we're seeing the superimposed picture, are you open to seeing his rendering how he wants to do it? And then one with the fan light, or for balance, are you concerned about?
Well, I just think that one of the features here that works on this, on this building is that curvature. Because it kind of meets the curvature that you have on the front and sort of meant to replicate it. So I think if we were to replicate that design, you know, where we're sort of mimicking everything, but we're streamlining it. And maybe in your verticals, you have a slight hierarchy, but it's if you're taking that design and you're removing the glazing, putting in screening, and not coming perhaps with as much of ornate a trim, but a trim that sort of mimics this, then yes, that is something that we talked about
Yeah.
when we were on site. And so you're evoking what was there, you're coming back with materials that are sort of healthy and simpler, and even within that, you'll probably want that hierarchy, like, you know, the edges are a bit thicker, and then, so you're kind of recreating that, but you're just getting rid of the glazing, you're getting rid of the wood material that's so deteriorated, but somebody can see it and still say, okay, this is actually what was there, and this is something that's evocative of a period that was important for the building, as you pointed out, with all of its uses. So I think that is something that, yes,
So is that a conversation that you two can have back and forth? So he's happy with the design that ultimately comes out versus?
yeah, and we can certainly, and that's a conversation we can easily have online, like virtual chats.
Mm.
Wherever you are, we can have that conversation easily enough. And then come to something to say, okay, this is something that I'm more than happy to. And it's also something because I know that you have constraints in terms of travel. But it's something, if we are completely on board and there's a next meeting and if you're not here, I'm more than happy to represent the conversation that we had.
Right.
And you're always welcome to bring it to the commission. If you're not happy with it.
Are you sure I would be welcome to do that?
No, I mean,
I'm just kidding.
you're asking valid questions and you
Yeah.
prepared the packet very well. I mean, we
Thank you.
really appreciate the packet and the conversation. It's just, I think we're really close to being on the same page. We just need a few more details hashed out.
I mean, and in all transparency, I do have an urgency to get this taken care of because I'm flipping my residence, you know, and I hope you're really jealous about this. I'm moving to Portugal for the most time, spending more time in Portugal than I will be in the States. Put it that way, a whole lot more time in Portugal. So I have an apartment over there. My partner and I we're transferring, or we're just moving there permanently. We'll still have homes here.
I understand it's quite nice in Portugal.
It's beautiful in Portugal. Matter of fact, my one-way ticket is Saturday.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, we won't have it before Saturday, ever.
Yeah, I know. So that's why I've been trying to get this.
But to your point about the design, the one thing is that when you look at it from the streets, the open arches have that curve.
Yeah.
And this was a way to evoke those curves just within the opening, so you'd have that continuation, but you didn't close it. So that's why that curve
And
is.
without having.
Give us
glass.
pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the house is going to be up for sale and it may be sold before this is all said and done. I may hand the permit over to, you know, the new owners. But, you know, I promised them I would give them something. So, you know, whoever that might be, I don't have any yet. You know, I do feel a certain obligation to make sure that I get this taken care of properly.
Frustrated you enough for one evening.
No, and believe me, Jeff will tell you, Jeff and I have worked together on projects and stuff, and my industry, fire protection and engineering, you know, every single day, it's a challenge.
So,
I work all over the world. I just finished a project in Atlanta, Georgia with Grady Hospital with 2 helipads on the 15th story. You know, firefighting foam system for helicopters if there is an incident. So all sorts of different things. Nobody knew what they were doing. So it's ages for people.
So
I've done the same.
where we go from here with this, can it be tabled for consideration of the next TAC meeting and the submission of a modified design? if you're-
That sounds
Okay.
fair to me. I appreciate it.
Then would, would someone like to make a motion to table this application with the applicant's consent, pending, the revised design submissions at the next meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved.
And then,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
let's make sure that we coordinate so we can go through the different designs. I know it's the holidays, but you know, there's a threshold about getting things 2 weeks before the next January.
Yeah.
So I'm working pretty much over the next 2 weeks, so we can communicate back and forth with that.
All right, sounds great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming in and thank you for,
Fixing those rotten windows.
Yes.
I know, they came there and I'm like, I can push on these, but I don't want to push on them real hard.
There's nothing like a screwdriver when you take pictures. There's so many
Yeah.
people, basically.
Like,
Proof is in the punch.
All right,
take care.
see you.
Bye-bye, thank you. Yeah, bye.
Safe travel.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Right. Someone's been waiting patiently.
Okay, we have 55 West Fifth Street, Norman Zubaka, a ductless heater.
Oh, that has been dealt with as a hearing.
Oh, okay.
Happy day.
So before we rush out of here, we do have one more thing, and that is to, we have to approve the minutes. I thought I would leave those to the end, so we could just, I know I've disappointed,
But we
I'm
don't
sorry.
have them.
Oh, I
They're-
thought we
they're
don't have
different.
correct minutes.
We have the special meeting in last month's meeting,
It's the August 29th.
right? That's the one that was missing from last month.
We don't have the August special meeting, I mean, the October special meeting.
That's my fault. I realized there was an October special meeting too.
But you
No,
can
we
do
already
it at next
approved
week's
the
special
August.
meeting.
We can put them in next week's.
And we put the, we approved the October 10th at the last meeting, so we need the October special meeting and the November.
And
So those will be brought to December special meeting where we can accept them.
can we put them on the December one?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll move those to the December special.
Yes, question, public comment?
Yes,
Thank you for waiting patiently.
you're welcome. I have some public comments. These relate to the 122 Delaware Street proposed solar shingle project. So you denied it, so it's a moot point for that particular project. But I did want to offer some interesting information that relates to the use of solar panels, solar shingles on roofs, just.
And could you identify yourself and your
I'm sorry.
relationship?
Yes, I'm Karen Whalen. I live in the city. I'm 54th Street. So this issue of solar panel, solar shingle installations on roofs has farther ranging implications than just one project. So perhaps, and my concerns that I wanted to bring forward are non-architectural, non-aesthetic. So perhaps there is a different entity in the city that I should bring those forward to. But I was ready to object to that project on that basis, and that is that I'm a large property, highly protected risk engineer for large commercial properties and I'm all hazard risk assessor. And solar panels, those solar tile shingles are an emerging risk in my industry. And they've come to the top of the attention of risk assessors like myself. And
Reasons being,
reasons being that they pose a serious fire hazard among other hazards to the properties that they are installed on. And the installation of these solar panels in the name of green installations really front ran the commercial insurance industry in terms of the industry providing risk mitigating advice to the commercial fashions that wanted to install these. So there are many installations that when we go to them now, they can't meet are what we would make now for recommendations for them to do prior in the course of installing these systems onto these roofs. So if you dig deep, and this doesn't seem to be a topic that's generally known to the public. So, and it's just really becoming, there's an awareness of that. And I talk to a lot of people who want to install solar panels or consider installing them on their roofs. And I like to feel that I successfully talked them out of it. I would never do it on my own home.
Question, is it a result of the failure in the product or poor
Yeah,
installation?
that's a good question. It's really, you're putting electric power on a roof. And you're creating situations where you can have arc faults, ground faults, arc hazards, overheating, resulting in fires. And the fire will hit the roof cover, it'll burn through the roof cover, depending on the nature of the roof deck, it'll burn down through the deck. And you're looking at a fire that's entering into the facility, destroying the contents, could destroy the entire building. In a case where you have a residential building, all wood, we would look at that so unfavorably if we were assessing that as an insurance company. And because of the nature of the combustibility of a wooden roof and a wooden frame building. And the risks in a city like Newcastle are obvious. I mean, you had a singular house that's affected the house of origin, but here you've got multiple buildings that are the fire is gonna spread horizontally. It's gonna jump from buildings that don't have a separation distance of 35 to 40 feet. So you're looking at a big hazard. So beyond aesthetics, I would definitely encourage yourselves, another board in the city, to look at a blanket. We don't want to approve these until we know that all the risks can be mitigated. I mean, it is a serious issue. I just want to bring it to your attention.
So your objection is to the roof shingle, not to the roof solar panels?
Both. I've seen these on commercial buildings in different forms. I've seen this flat tile ones. I've seen them where they've burned out, they've overheated. I've seen the solar panels on the racks, which is the more common installation these days. But the variety of these installations is changing and growing and extending into the residential sector. And this is a good example. And I'll just urge caution. The risk is not zero or fire from these installations.
Right, and the roof shingle ones, benefit cost analysis doesn't pay off at all.
Yeah.
You're not gonna recoup the cost of these installations for probably 12 years anyway, and maybe longer. And a solar panel, you could maybe make a case that you could maybe make a profit that after 8 years or so, but these flat panels are just they're not good.
I don't wanna see the town burn down.
No, I don't wanna see the town burn down either.
As an insurer, there are other concerns as well that may or may not come into play in installation, fire being the biggest. But there's also, if you had a hailstorm, you're gonna have hail impacts, which could lead to fire along the way. There are going to be aesthetic concerns from microfracturing and cracking. And windstorms can cause uplift. Again, we're not in a really high wind zone area, but there's always that potential as well. But fire risk is the big one, especially for a city like Newcastle.
Our design criteria for roofs near the water, right here is 116 miles an hour.
Yes, so there are design criteria. Yep.
So
It's really high.
ASC 716. Gives the wind speed.
I mean, it's a sector where the industry has kind of rushed and then it's catching up in terms of the implementation.
Correct. Yeah, so
So
now.
your interest is casual as a resident of the town, or is this a professional interest you have, or both?
Well, I have no professional vested interest, but as a risk engineer, I carry my job wherever I go. So I have an interest in the town because I like history and historicity. It's important to me. But I mean, if I can offer my knowledge from my profession to the benefit of the town, why not, right? So that was my interest. I have no other.
So if you're my neighbor and I ask you over the fence, should I put some solar panels up on my roof? What's your suggestion?
Absolutely not. And if you're touching my house,
Really?
not the board and ask them to deny you. Yeah.
Well, and you're absolutely right, because we have the twofold problem here is the concentration of residences here, but also the historic district. So we have two things that we have to be concerned about, which was initially the concern when Norleys went up the first time is, what if this was overnight and what if it went
My
down
heart
the
was
block?
pounding. I saw it. I was
Mhm.
calling Tim Scully, telling him that his
Mhm.
neighbor was on fire.
I do have a question going along with that. If we weren't concerned about the city burning down, aesthetically, has anybody seen shingles that would be aesthetically acceptable?
No. Not yet. I haven't seen anything that's, I mean, it's just because the reflectivity of the material, it clearly stands out.
Gotcha.
So Kevin, so just to illustrate as well, I don't need to blow my own horn. Just to say that my interest in fire protection and protecting historic buildings goes super far. I have a lot of experience with my employers. But I also had made a trip down to the state in Delaware and Dover. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but put together an entire packet and an explanation of the hazards of not having sprinklers in our state house, and they ultimately were installed. And I want to believe that that's my impetus in doing that
Well,
drove that to
You
completion.
certainly helped. We've been after that since 1991 when I showed up here.
Yeah.
And they came close one time and didn't took it out of the contract. So they finally put the sprinklers in there and
I was very.
we can sleep better at night.
Yeah,
So
you lose that
thank
building,
you.
you lose the town, the whole nature.
Right,
Absolutely.
and we've been sprinkling almost every structure that's been built in town.
And I think they've been actually generally in terms of the IEBC and stuff like that, they've kind of narrowed down the parameters by which you can get exemptions because the historic building, and not put the sprinkler. I think for most of the buildings like the courthouse, or say that it's become almost a de facto need, either, wet sprinklering or dry sprinkling system that they put them in. They just find smarter ways to hide them. With heads and stuff like that.
And misting systems, but we put them in the sheriff's house too. Yes,
I heard that you were doing that. I haven't been in there yet.
that was even more interesting.
It will be open this Saturday for Spirit of Christmas, so.
10 to 4, right? It's 10 to 4.
Yes, it's technically 10 to 5, but the last hour will be.
Cool.
Who should she talk to around town to build up some support for proper code guidelines? Other than you, because.
It's not proper code guidelines. What we need to do is to lobby, and I think if we all lobby, Newcastle County will get rid of the residential exemption that the IBC now calls for sprinklers in every new, residential
We're
structure.
talking about the solar panel.
Solar panels, good luck. That's a tough one. You've got a whole bunch of, best that you've got a whole bunch of lobbyists trying to sell expensive solar panels. Well, they're expensive when we sell them, but if the Chinese tariff goes through, we won't have to worry about it for a while. And that's disclosed.
Like code, their advisory for code updates, AIA, just bringing that to them, and see what their reaction is. Because they go like, what do you mean? We're pushing solar panels everywhere.
Because they want the International Energy Code gets us in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, you could keep this local, and whatever local governing body is the right one to set forth a blanket policy that we want to set this aside and not allow it.
City council?
It was tough to get the MSC to be firm about their interconnection standards so that we could not, because a lot of people just like to plug a bunch of batteries put a bunch of batteries in the basement and then just put an inverter and try to sell it back to the power company and you get a house fire and the firemen are fighting the fire, and as soon as the sun comes up, one of them gets electrocuted. There are many interesting things, but we have solar panels in the historic district. We've approved those.
Yeah.
And we have
On 4th Street, I think.
on 4th Street, and we have got by the same person that brought us in the Kalmar Nickel playground. So and then we have tons of them. We got a field out there by our water plant. We've got them on the roofs out in the industrial parks, but it's and some people insist on put them on their homes because they've got tin men selling solar systems. This is gonna save you so much money. This is gonna make you so much money.
Gets no sun.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
often a lot of regrets.
My wife wanted to put them on. We're surrounded by, acorns and walnuts and falling and just surrounded by these things.
You'd be doing your part.
I chopped the hickory tree down just because it dented my truck. What would it have done to the solar panel?
The salesman insisted. If
Come
I
to
could
city
come to work,
council,
and he
start
stood up, and the
lobbying
salesman
and-
came and was like, why am I here? And we're like,
Yeah.
we told you that.
This
We're at
town
Arbor
could
Park,
go overnight.
Down in the
you know.
village. He said, "Where?"
Absolutely.
And he said the
Yeah,
salespeople
yeah.
did all the
Okay.
time. They look them
This
over.
town
Be
is
like
like
18 to 24
100-year-old
Just get on the agenda.
Or I would just send her an email and, bring it up and then probably go from there.
Because it might be something that needs to be in the
There's some
historic district
information,
at least. I mean, if you live,
education that needs to take place.
Yeah. Yeah, because at the current
if you
rate,
live in Van Dyke Village and you have larger property lots, it might not be as big of a deal because the fire risk isn't as bad. I mean, granted, we
It's not
don't,
a community situation.
well, you could put them on ground mounted is perfectly fine,
Right.
keep them away from the phone. If that's allowed, but that's certainly preferable to having them on the roof.
yeah, but if you live in Dobbinsville or Shawtown.
Oh,
or
God,
here-
For Third Street.
Well, we got
Second
all those
Street.
people that are of, modest income. They don't have firewalls that are
Yes.
effective and we have people that don't understand the firewalls.
Every month.
Every month I get accused of being a murderer because I make people put firewalls in.
Yep, predictable.
Every month. I'm a murderer because I make people put firewalls
And
in.
everyone likes hack for what it does. And
Oh, yeah, they
doesn't
all
to
love you
them.
guys too, but they don't threaten to murder you, do they?
No, not yet anyway.
Okay,
They're too great, plus they have labor.
That's why we all use assumed names.
yes,
Why I go out
Oh,
with
sure.
sunglasses and
It's like,
a hat.
sure, Ralph, I know that, it's.
Jeff's a standout.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's
Thank you
very
for,
good information.
Keep it up.
Thank you for sticking around.
Yes, thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn,
I second the motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Hot darn.